Welcome to Film with Family. I'm Zach,
And I'm Austin.
and we are two demons.
Who will drag you to hell? We have such sights to show you.
And we want to talk about two movies with you today.
Hellraiser.
And The Evil Dead.
We'll steal your soul.
That's where the devil lives. Wow. Okay, so yes, we're going to talk about horror movies. It is still the month of October. And yes, you are listening to Film with Family, Extended Family.
Yes. And we today are, as Zach said, we're talking about two movies today. We're talking about Hellraiser and The Evil Dead. And this is actually a little bit of a request from your brother, Caleb.
Yeah, I think he left a comment on an episode way back in January that he wants to have Zach and Austin talk about some of their favorite movies again, which we kind of did with the Raising Billy Madison episode way back
Yeah,
early in the podcast.
way back.
But we haven't really done that format since then, right?
No,
I mean, I
no.
think we've kind of inadvertently talked about some favorite movies,
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
but this is specifically, I'm picking one of my favorites. Austin's picking one of his favorites. We're going to talk about both. It's a
Yeah.
creature double feature, if you will.
Yeah. Caleb, when he requested that, my first thought actually was to do Hellraiser because that is one of my favorite movies. And I know that Evil Dead has been in your top four
Hmm.
as long as I've subscribed to your letterboxed. So I
Yeah.
was like, why don't we put that on hold, put it on ice, and wait till our Halloween episode?
Yeah. I think we even had the idea to do something similar last October as well, but I don't
Oh,
think
right. Yeah.
it didn't pan out. But
Yeah. The Hell Dead idea has been in the hopper for a long time.
this year we're like, we got to do it. We
Yeah.
got to make Hell Dead happen. It's probably the most preparation I've done for any episode or most
Me
movies
too.
I've watched in preparation for a Film with Family episode. It's kind of a daunting project.
Yes.
And I mean, yeah, we're just trying to talk about the first movies of these franchises, but inevitably we've both of us have watched movies outside of the just the
Yes.
main movie.
Yeah.
Um, so it's watched a lot of movies for this episode.
Yeah. Really hit it hard this weekend trying to catch up with all of these movies. But, in a way, I've been prepping for this episode for years because 2 years ago, I was supposed to do a podcast even before we started ours with some friends who were saying that they were going to bring back a horror podcast. My friends, Justin, who you know, and my other
Hmm.
friend, Joe, had a podcast like 10 years ago called Tuesdays with Gory, which
Hmm.
is great. I loved it. They only did about 10 episodes, but they are up online. Maybe we'll put a link in the description. But
Yeah, I haven't got to check this out yet. I want to listen though.
yeah, we did an episode, the three of us together, on this movie called The Dentist, this horror movie, The Dentist, which is really
Hmm.
funny. They were talking about bringing it back a couple years ago, and they were like, "Do you want to do Hellraiser?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And I'll take it a step further. I've been meaning to watch all of the sequels, so I'm just
Hmm.
gonna do it.
Yeah.
So I think it was 2022 that all of October I just dedicated to watching every single Hellraiser movie, at least
Wow.
within the Miramax world. I've had this batch of notes for years waiting to unleash them,
Wow.
and now here we are.
Were the notes legible, or is it the scribblings of a madman?
It was pretty much indecipherable. It made no sense at all. So I had to kind of revisit some of the movies, this week as well, and it was fun. I found some stuff that I hadn't before, found some new appreciation for some new movies, or found some new appreciation for some of the movies.
hmm
Um, yeah,
But yeah, I think in terms of going chronologically, The Evil Dead came out before Hellraiser, and so I was thinking maybe we could start the episode in the Evil Dead zone.
yeah. And also, I just want to say Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, film with family listeners.
Ooh. Before we get into the movies, I wanted to just bring up watching both of these franchises. So I watched Evil Dead 1 through 3, and
hmm
watched Hellraiser, the Quartet of Torment, the first four, and then a little bit of another one, which we can talk about later. But I found a lot of similarities in these two movies.
Yes, yeah, I was kind of thinking about the similarities as well. Kind of compare the Necronomicon to like the puzzle box.
Exactly. The box in the book.
Yeah, it's like these two demonic objects, kind of portals almost.
Yeah, that open up the gates of hell.
Yeah, and all the movies they kind of really center on these objects.
Mm-hmm. And then you got the Cenobites and you got the Deadites.
Both end in ites.
Yeah, you got the
I don't,
bites and the dites.
I don't even think about that. That's
Yeah.
good.
They're both like the kind of the minions of the underworld that get unleashed when you open up these MacGuffins. Both of the movies have this MacGuffin in the center of it that
Yeah.
drives the plot or advances the plot in whatever way it needs to.
hmm
Um,
Yeah.
and they're both iconic American horror franchises.
And they both started in the 1980s.
Both started in the 1980s, both spawned by writer directors. Got Clive
Oh yeah.
Barker and Sam Raimi.
Yeah, that was a cool connection when I realized that The Evil Dead is Sam Raimi's feature-length directorial debut and Hellraiser is Clive Barker's directorial debut.
Yeah.
Two incredible directorial debuts.
Yes. Both. I don't know how much uh, behind the scenes or interviews that you've watched with Clive Barker or Sam Raimi, but they're both like these baby faced, like smiley, charming, kind of like nice guys.
Yeah, I haven't seen any Clive Barker footage, but Sam Raimi, he's definitely kind of nerdy,
Yeah.
but kind of almost reminded me of Fred Armisen in one video I found of him. Well,
Yeah, he's a very silly guy. He like loves the Three Stooges. He's always goofing around on set. Like all the behind the scenes that I saw of him on Evil Dead is like him being like yeah, 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 yeah. Like just like goofing around with the prosthetics and stuff.
hmm
And Clive Barker isn't that silly. He's actually like way more like sincere and like cerebral, but um he's also like very charming and like the way he can like speak about things is very articulate and apparently everything that I've seen or in every behind the scenes people just gush about how awesome he is, how cool he was of a presence, how smart he was, interesting. Like they're both like these very charismatic guys
hmm
and both seem like on the outside like very innocent, but they have a very sinister interior.
Yeah. Yeah, and Sam Raimi has a huge film career. He went on to make the Spider-Man trilogy, which I love, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans, along with a bunch of other great movies. Some okay movies, but he's got a good film career. But Clive Barker, he doesn't really have many movies, does he?
No, not so much. He has one really fun movie called Nightbreed. It's got some great makeup effects in it. A lot of people like looking like animals and demented creatures. And it's a lot of fun, but it's nowhere near as iconic as Hellraiser. Hellraiser, I think it's going to be the top line in his obituary. But
Yeah.
he's also like an amazing author. He's an illustrator,
Uh,
screenwriter, got his
have you ever
start.
read a Barker book?
I sure have. I read the Hellbound Heart, which is what Hellraiser is based on.
Hmm.
Um, so Hellraiser was initially a novella called The Hellbound Heart that he wrote, with the explicit purpose of being turned into a movie eventually. It was kind of like a pitch. And
Okay.
he just decided to take it on himself to write the script and develop the film, direct it himself with a bunch of his friends. Because he was like a writer and performer for the stage in England, where he's from. But anyways, we can get into that, I guess, when we get into Hellraiser. But
Yeah.
if you want to jump into Evil Dead first, let's do it.
I guess I'll just say my history a little bit with Evil Dead, and it's interesting because I just recently remembered that my first exposure to the Evil Dead franchise was not the movies, but the Broadway play Evil Dead the musical.
Right, I heard about this. Tell me about it.
I saw it and when I went to Michigan State University. I think I was like a sophomore or junior or something like that, and it might have been part of an assignment for like an acting class I was taking, but I just remember the this touring production of Evil Dead the musical came to the Wharton Center, I believe it's called, at MSU, and I went to the show and I had a great time. I thought it was super funny, and I liked the whole premise of it. And they had like a splatter zone. I wasn't in the splatter. I was up in the balcony, but like there's like a little zone where they get splashed with blood and shit and guts.
Were people wearing ponchos like a Gallagher stand-up show?
Yeah, some people were prepared, but
Poncho prepared.
so yeah, that was my first exposure to Evil Dead the musical, and it's pretty much just or to Evil Dead the franchise was through this musical,
Mhm.
and it was just like basically just restaging the original film, The Evil Dead, as a musical, and I remember it being fun, but I didn't watch the movie after that until like back in like 2020
Oh,
or
really?
not or 2021's the first time I saw any Evil Dead movies.
Really?
So I don't have a long history of loving this movie. It's
Wow.
but it's also kind of result of the fact that I just haven't been a horror movie guy until like the last 6 years or so.
Hmm.
So like it's kind of a new thing for me. So my history is kind of fresh with it. Like my first watch of The Evil Dead is on Letterboxd. You can see my
Hmm.
first review on, I think it's from
Hmm.
2021.
Hmm.
And I was right after like a Michigan State football game and they won. And I watched it with my friends and we're celebrating the Michigan Stateness of it all because Sam Raimi's a Michigan State alum.
Right. So
Um,
that's what surprises me that like I feel like as a film student at Michigan State University, they'd probably just hand everybody a copy of Evil Dead. I mean, it got to be like
yeah.
half of the people who were there are because of Sam Raimi.
Yeah. And I think one of my screenwriting professor, Bill Vincent, worked on the film. Like
Oh,
he's in the credits as like a fake Shemp,
what
which
is the deal with the fake Shemp? Like, what do you know? Why? I mean, like, I know he's a huge stooge head,
yeah.
but what is a fake Shemp? Is it just people who were in the prosthetics, or?
I think it's just like a body double or something. And I thought
Mm.
that's like his funny term for like just like somebody that like stood in for somebody.
Oh, I see. Like literally, like before they even were rolling, like just to have people help out with the blocking, or.
Maybe, or just like or like actually like them like if they're like in prosthetics or something, or like it's like someone getting filmed from behind or something like that. Maybe they'll just like use some random person who was on set.
Hold on, I want to confirm this. Let's look up what is a fake Shemp. I meant to look this up.
A fake Shemp is a type of body double who appears in a film to replace another actor or person, usually
Mm.
when the original actor has died or is otherwise unable to reprise the role. So yeah, there's a lot of fake Shemp use in the Evil Dead apparently.
I love that he has an affinity for the Three Stooges. Do you ever watch the Three Stooges?
Not really. I think I saw like the movie they made that had Larry David in it, which I thought was pretty bad. It's like a newer movie.
Oh, like about the Three Stooges?
No, it's like just like trying to like adapt it for more
Trying
modern times.
adapting Three Stooges. It's
Yeah, it's
hilarious.
by the Farrelly brothers from
Oh wow.
2012. Cast Will Sasso and Sean Hayes.
It sounds cursed.
Larry David's in it. Jane
As
Lynch.
Curly? Is Larry Curly? Or is Larry
Oh,
Larry?
Will Sasso plays Curly. Sean Hayes plays Larry. Chris Diamantopoulos plays Mo. It's a that's my exposure to the Three Stooges. I mean, I've seen
That's
some of their
hilarious.
original shorts, I guess, but
I actually this year I saw a Three Stooges movie in 3D, and it was a horror 3D Three Stooges
a Three Stooges
movie.
horror.
Yeah, called Spooks, and is like kind of a, I don't know, Dr. Frankenstein type deal where they like break into this lab. But the 3D element of it actually was really impressive because there were like
Hmm.
these scenes where the doctor is like coming at the screen with a syringe, and it truly felt like it was like in my face. Um, I was
Wow.
I was very impressed by the Three Stooges 3D movie.
We're not
There's
talking
a
Stooges
Shemp
today.
but there's a Shemp bat. You got to know there's a Shemp who's dressed as a bat. I love Shemp bat. All right, sorry.
All right,
Back to Evil
Shempat.
Dead.
The first time I saw The Evil Dead was October 30th, 2021. I logged it on Letterboxd, but instantly fell in love with it. And a part of it was just the inspirational tale of it and like feeling connected to Sam Raimi as he's a Michigan guy
Yeah.
and he was living in Detroit when he was making the movie. And he went to MSU. He was fresh out of graduating college and he made this movie with his friends and family and just everything about the story of the Evil Dead and its production, I just respect a lot, and I found very
Mhm.
inspiring. And so that makes me love it even more. But even just watching it divorced of like what's going on, like the production of it and like how it came to be, I find it to be a very entertaining and scary movie.
Yeah. I think of the three major films, the three Raimi films, this one is definitely the scariest.
Yeah. The Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness. I
Hmm.
think this is my favorite of the bunch
Hmm.
of the whole series.
Hmm.
And I think it's just got the right balance for me of scariness to humor. And I just love the low budget vibe of it. Movie that's low budget and it's like doing crazy shit like this, like stop motion
Hmm.
and cool
Hmm.
prosthetics. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, you can just feel the energy of the production in the movie, and I love that. And I
Yeah.
love it for its flaws, you know. It's like got some shots that are just blatantly out of focus. It's like it's fine.
Moving
That's
on.
all part of the charm.
Do you want to give just a very, kind of a high level overview of what The Evil Dead is about? I know the script is like 14 pages long for an
Yeah.
hour and a half movie. So,
Well, I watched this interview with Sam Raimi talking about making The Evil Dead, and it's like the year after it came out in 1982.
mhm.
And I think there's a part where he gives a synopsis of it. And I think maybe it'd be fun to have Sam Raimi say it himself.
Evil Dead is a film about five college students that go up to this small cabin in the mountains of Tennessee. And there they find an ancient book and a tape recording of a man, both left there by this man, a professor, who had gone to this cabin to study these artifacts on this dig that he had been on in what would have been ancient Samaria. And the tape recording that they find is a journal on exactly what this book is. And in fact, it's the Book of the Dead, a book of do's and don'ts dealing with the deceased. It's got burial passages of the Sumerians and ancient incantations for resurrecting the dead. And he warns on this tape that these things shouldn't be tampered with. But in his quest for knowledge, he goes ahead anyways. And he unleashes these evil forces. And in fact, they're still there as these children are one by one terrorized by it. It comes from the woods, this dark and brooding entity, and surrounds the cabin that they're in, and one by one it possesses them, and their eyes go white, and they're jerked about like marionettes, and they're forced against one another. And it's a love story. No, it's not a love story, but it's a lot of fun. I don't want to give away the shock ending, but we we tried to make it as scary and as fun as possible.
It's a good synopsis from the man himself. He was only 21, or I think he's 20 when they started filming The Evil Dead,
Yeah.
which is just it's just hard to imagine being that young and taking on a feature-length horror movie project like this. And
Yeah.
it's incredible.
Yeah. And I think he took a very, professional approach to it as well. I mean, I saw an interview with him where he was talking about how the way that they funded this was they were literally going up to people with like documents that they had developed by lawyers that were like, if you give this much money, we'll give you this much percent of the movie. So he really did
Mhm.
it the right way.
Yeah, he went door to door financing it,
Hmm.
getting people to back it, and he made a 30-minute short film as a proof of concept that he would show to investors to show like, hey, we can do the horror thing.
Hmm.
Um, and he played it right.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of work to get in all that money. I think the movie cost around like $300,000, I think I read, or something like that. Less than a million.
Raimi said the film cost $375,000.
That's a lot of money to raise as a 20-year-old kid.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I want to just go back to I'm just amazed, Zach, that you didn't see this movie until a few years ago because I see a lot of Raimi's style in some of your early works and like Cannibal Island and all that stuff. Like I feel
mhm.
like it's very Raimi-esque. Maybe it's just whatever's in the water in Detroit or whatever. But um, I mean, you must have heard about him in film school there, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I knew about it, and I loved the Spider-Man movies, which I saw as soon as they came out. So I was like,
Hmm.
I knew some of Sam Raimi's films, but I don't know. I just wasn't a big horror guy back in my MSU days.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was the genre I cared about.
Hmm.
And yeah, I feel like 2018 when I saw Hereditary in theaters, I feel like that was the movie that was kind of like the turnkey that was like, wait, maybe horror is
Is
awesome.
good.
Maybe I love horror. And then I
Yeah.
started getting deep into horror, I think around when I saw Hereditary.
Yeah.
And it just worked out. The Evil Dead I didn't see until 2021, which is, I feel embarrassed to say, as an MSU alum,
Hmm.
but I fell in love immediately. So that was good.
Yeah. So what is it about this movie in particular that you love other than the low budgetness of it?
Well, I really love that it's not like a zombie movie. It's
Hmm.
like a demon possession movie, which I
Hmm.
find just to be a lot scarier and cooler than just like the zombies. Because when you hear Evil Dead, it sounds like, oh, that's just a zombie movie, but it's like it's a little bit more nuanced, a little more interesting than that,
Yeah.
with like the Necronomicon and like seeing like the demon illustrations and like having to repeat the chant, and also
Yeah.
the idea of just like an invisible evil force that is
Yeah.
just like careening through the forest, and you get the POV shot of it. Like
Hmm.
there's something about that I just really love.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never been a super big fan of the zombie genre. I think that one of the things that I don't like about it is because it's never really explained why these creatures are rising up from their graves. Whereas a movie like Evil Dead is like, well, they were awoken and now they're coming back, and so
Or
now
like
it makes,
Hellraiser, it's like, well, you did this puzzle box
yeah.
and it opened a portal.
Yeah, and you were dragged to hell, and now you're coming back for whatever reason. Yeah. Whereas, like most zombie movies, Night of the Living Dead, which I think is a great movie, but it's just all of a sudden they're just rising from the grave for whatever reason. There's no real explanation to it.
Yeah, I like it when there's a person you can kind of blame for all the shit that's happening.
Yes, exactly.
Like somebody fucks up and
Hmm.
suddenly everyone has to deal with this situation. Yeah, I just love that it's like in the Evil Dead movie, it's like two dudes, each with their girlfriend, and also Bruce Campbell's character Ash is also his sister is there.
Hmm.
So and like he's like there with his best friend, I guess. So like
Hmm.
they got this, you get a sense of their bond as a group, and they have all this history together. I don't know, just when they start tearing each other apart and getting possessed, it just has more weight to it, knowing that they're just not like strangers, they got this connection, and also the just the way that the possession works is that they can like snap back into being normal
Hmm.
and like go from just like being a raving possessed lunatic, and then they can like switch back. Then they're like, what's happening? Oh, I'm so scared. And I just like the mind fuck of that. I find to be really scary and really effective in the Evil Dead movie. Like
Yeah.
when Ash has like the shotgun to his girlfriend's head, ready
Yeah.
to blow her head off, and then she does the switch back, and then
Hmm.
it's like
Hmm.
starts crying and hugs him, and it's
Yeah.
just I could just imagine being in that situation, feeling so conflicted
Hmm.
and mind
Yeah.
fucked, and it's great.
Yeah, which is kind of a trope in zombie movies now where, they have to make this decision to kill their loved one now that they've turned bad. But
Yeah. But I
Evil
like that
Dead
they
takes
can,
it yeah,
yeah,
Evil Dead
switching
takes
back
it a
and forth.
step further by making them switch back and forth and seeing their old
Yeah.
self.
And like you're so confused. You're like, maybe this is just like a passing thing. Like it'll just be one night and then they'll be normal. It's like
Yeah.
you don't know how the rules work. So
Yeah.
there's like a hope that like maybe I shouldn't kill them because maybe they can get through this phase. But I don't know.
Well,
It's
not to skip
tough.
ahead to Evil Dead 2, but in Evil Dead 2, Ash turns evil and then this daylight comes out and then that switches him back to normal Ash. And so I'm like, are
Mhm.
there vampire rules too? To like where it's
Yeah.
like if the sun comes out, like they're allergic to sunlight. So a lot of
hmm
the like what turns people evil and what makes them flip back and forth. Because in Evil Dead 1, it just seems like a power that they possess where they can like kind of go back to their old self in order to kill people.
hmm
But in Evil Dead 2, it just flips just because the sun came out or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't see any like possessed deadites or whatever or
Hmm.
during the day and at all in the original Evil
Oh,
Dead. So
that's
maybe
true. It is all at night. Yeah.
it is all at night and takes place in the cabin. So maybe there is like just nighttime rules.
But in Army of Darkness, that the whole movie is in the daylight.
That's
So,
true. Yeah, they're playing fast and loose. There's no real rules. It's not set in stone like Gremlins. Um,
yeah. There's rules
but
in
it's
Hellraiser
great.
too that are a little wobbly. So,
Yeah, it's a little unclear, but I kind of like not knowing everything and being a little like confused or I don't know, like just like anything could happen kind of thing. The trees could come alive,
mhm.
all that crazy shit.
Yeah. That's the one thing with this movie that I still just can't get over is the weird tree rape scene.
Yeah.
Like it's a little
Yeah,
it's a
it's like
little icky.
it's the low point of the movie for sure, but
But it also is like the first kill and the first like, oh no, like
well
these
she doesn't
kids are
get
in
killed.
trouble.
It's just yeah, it's just like the I guess the first like evil thing to happen.
Hmm.
But she gets like infected with the evil and
Aren't
but
they
yeah,
dead at
that
that point? Once you're evil, or once you're dead, you're evil. Evil dead.
I don't know. I don't know if it's that simple. Because she doesn't turn right away. Like she's like normal for a while, and then it takes a while for her to turn after that scene. But
She's
it is,
guessing the cards.
yeah, but it is cool the way they kind of filmed that with, I guess they just like
Hmm.
reversed, like getting wrapped up in vines and just like reverse the footage so it looks like it was grabbing onto her.
Hmm.
And
Oh, it's a great effect.
I like the idea of like the trees becoming evil and like the trees becoming alive. But yeah, it goes a little too far with the rapiness of it,
Yeah.
I would say.
But
But I mean, rape is evil, so
yeah, it's a little tough, but there's a lot of kind of misogyny in this movie where it's just like a lot of like, shut up. I
yeah.
don't
But I
know.
think the movie's self-aware that they're like bad boyfriends. It's like not trying to valorize them. It's like, and there's a quote that Raimi feels like he was like kind of joking that like this movie's like kind of empowering and that the women become the terrorizers as opposed to the
Mm,
victims.
that is true.
Uh, I mean, they're also victims, but like just them like, most of the
Mm-hmm.
time it's the women just like beating the shit out of the two guys.
Yeah.
And there's some sick pleasure to be taken out of that because
Mm-hmm.
Scotty is like a super asshole to his girlfriend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh,
It's a little tough, but it's a very fun movie. Great practical effects, great makeup.
do you remember the first time you saw it?
I guess my whole history with Evil Dead starts actually with Army of Darkness. When I was maybe 12 or 13, eighth grade, my group of friends loved Army of Darkness and watched it literally every single day. They would
Wow.
go, they would come home from school and pop on our Army of Darkness. This was like when we were first experimenting with drugs and drinking and stuff. And so we would like go into my friend Andy's basement and throw on Army of Darkness and just hang out and, just be kids. And we loved it. We would always go, little goody two shoes, little goody two shoes. And and
But
then I think
did you know that it was like attached to like this franchise, or do you just think it was just like a standalone movie?
yeah, I didn't really know where it came from, other than I think I did know that it was the third in a trilogy. And then so I think I worked my way backwards, which is how I watched the movies this time too. Started with Army of Darkness, then watched Evil Dead 2, then watched The
Hmm.
Evil Dead. So I think I saw Evil Dead 2 next because I remember my mom telling me that she knew one of the guys in Evil Dead 2. So the guy who's like kind of the hillbilly with the truck,
Oh,
um, his
really?
na- his name is Dan Hicks, and my mom knew him from Detroit
Oh,
as an
okay.
actor, and so that made me interested to see it. I saw Evil Dead 2, and then obviously Evil Dead 2 starts with kind of a recap of the first one. And
Hmm.
so I remember my friends being like, "Oh, you don't even need to see Evil Dead, the original, because Evil Dead 2 basically summarizes it." It took me a while until I saw the original Evil Dead, but I do have a very vivid memory of watching it by myself in my mom's basement and not being prepared for how actually scary it was, because
Yeah.
like my whole frame of reference was like Army of Darkness. And I just remember being really freaked out by it, especially when Cheryl is in the basement and just
Hmm.
like pushing up against the cellar door.
Yeah.
And that was, yeah, that was probably, I was probably 18 when I saw the original.
Hmm. But it's not a movie that like you've gone back to many times.
Not really. It's not something that's kind of, yeah, in my normal rotation of like horror movies, although I mean like obviously I love it and appreciate it. But
Hmm.
my hot take is it's actually my least favorite in the trilogy.
Wow. Well, how would you rank them?
I think backwards. I think Army of Darkness is my favorite, and then Evil Dead
Hmm.
2, and then the Evil Dead. I think that while I appreciate the low budget nature of the Evil Dead, especially watching it today, I feel like it doesn't hold up as well as I remember it. I feel like some of the prosthetics look a little like chunky and goopy, and like you can like
Hmm.
see how they like painted on the like makeup on especially Linda's face, like around her eyes. It's just like little lines like kind of just drawn onto her face. Um and that's not to disrespect it, because I have the utmost respect
Hmm.
for the Evil Dead. Like,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But revisiting the Army of Darkness, especially, I was like, holy shit, this movie is so good. Just so funny, so wacky. And then the effects in that movie are just astounding. Like,
Yeah, that movie looks really good. I rewatched that one. Well, I watched Evil Dead 2 yesterday, and then I watched Army of Darkness after that. Then I went back and watched The Evil Dead. So I watched three Evil Dead movies just yesterday.
wow,
I just had a full Evil Dead day.
super
Um,
fresh.
yeah, but Army of Darkness I definitely enjoy more than Evil Dead 2, I would say.
Hmm.
It's just the most fun, funny, and like the creatures and the special effects look the are at its peak.
Hmm.
Ash feels like his most fully realized version of his character, and
Hmm.
he's got all the best one-liners in that movie. Um,
We just cut up our girlfriend with a chainsaw. Does that sound fine? I love that one.
is that from Evil Dead 2?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Evil Dead 2 is a lot of fun, but it's very wacky, and
Hmm.
it's like more of a horror comedy.
Hmm.
And I don't know. I just want a little bit more horror than comedy, and so but I still think it's a great movie, and some of the best parts of the series are in Evil Dead 2.
Yeah.
Like the first half of Evil Dead 2 I think is pretty flawless. Like when it's just Ash just like
Hmm.
kind of alone in the cabin just getting fucked with, and like his hand is like possessed, and like that's just some great slapstick
Hmm.
shit.
Yeah, where he's like fighting with his own hand.
Hmm.
All that
It's
stuff
really
is great.
good. Yeah, that movie loses a little luster when it gets more into the second half and it brings in the other characters. Like I just don't care about those characters at all. And I feel
Hmm.
like the movie just really dampers down in that last half. And
Mm,
also some of the monster effects I don't think look as good in Evil Dead
mm.
2, or like just like the
The
heads
weird
of
like snake head thing that has
yeah,
like the
some
voice, like the sounds of monkeys behind it. It's
it's a
like,
little goofy in a way that I don't always appreciate, but it's a great movie.
yeah,
But I just love that The Evil Dead is just feels truly like a horror movie with some funny moments in it,
yeah,
but it's pure horror.
it really is. Yeah. And I didn't know this, but do you know that the Coen brothers were involved with the editing of this movie?
Yeah, I didn't I just read about that. Yeah, I knew that they had some friendship, Sam Raimi and the Coens. Joel like worked on like the edit a little bit, or he's like an assistant editor on the
Mm.
film.
So are the Coen brothers from Detroit too?
I don't think so. I think they're from the Midwest.
Oh yeah, they're from Minnesota.
I don't know. I don't know how they got together. But the Sam Raimi's second movie called Crime Wave, like he wrote with both the Coens.
Okay.
So they had like a more direct collaboration on that movie.
Hmm.
And I saw a YouTube video of Quentin Tarantino talking, like comparing Evil Dead 2 to Raising Arizona, or
Mm.
just like how, because they both came out in 1987. And he was
Hmm.
just talking about like those two movies felt like really changed the game in his eyes of like what you can do with a camera, like in
Hmm.
terms of just like being dramatic camera movements and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Super close-ups of Bruce Campbell's face.
Tarantino seemed like he was like trying to say they had like kind of like a friendly rivalry going on between Raimi and the Coens, like they were trying to one up each other cinematically, or I don't
Hmm.
know if that's true, but I think that's what he was trying to say. But obviously, Raising Arizona, one of my favorite movies, so it's cool
Hmm.
that it kind of has an Evil Dead connection as well.
Hmm. Hellraiser has a Billy Madison connection actually too.
Whoa.
No, it doesn't. I'm just
Damn
kidding.
it. You fucking idiot. Of course it doesn't.
The O'Doyles are actually Cenobites.
Maybe we could just talk about some moments I like from the Evil Dead. Well, I like how it sets up the kind of ominous tone at the beginning with just like the swinging seat of the cabin banging against the cabin and that
Hmm.
loud noise, and then like it suddenly stops, and it just really builds the suspense at the beginning with them going over the bridge, the crappy bridge and all that. There's a sense of dread to the whole beginning of this film, which none of the other Evil Dead movies have.
Yes.
except for like maybe the remake.
I mean, this is a classic cabin in the woods horror film. I want to say, was it the first to kind of set
I
up this as like a trope, like a horror trope?
I want to say so, but I don't have the receipts to back that up. But
Yeah, I mean, you got the whole 70s before it. There's probably another kid. But I would say, there's probably a few other ones out there that came before it. But I would say if you're talking a cabin in the woods horror film, this is top five.
top one for me.
But I mean, like in the history of cinema, like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can't mention a cabin in the woods horror film without Evil Dead
Or Cabin in the Woods.
or Cabin in the Woods.
That's the name of a movie.
Yes, it is.
But yeah, and I love a cabin as a setting. Knock at
Mhm.
the Cabin, M. Night Shyamalan, another good cabin movie. I love a good cabin. If
Cannibal Island.
Cannibal Island features a cabin,
Yeah.
so we were kind of directly influenced there, maybe, or indirectly. But yeah, the music in this movie, I think, was really good. Or I was pretty impressed that the score for this movie, like, it just feels like a classic '80s horror score with like
Yeah.
synths and like
Hmm.
screeching violins. And I really noted the music during the one scene when the sister is possessed, I think, and she's like stabbing the pencil through the paper, like drawing some kind of.
Yeah, she's drawing the Necronomicon book,
Oh yeah, yeah.
which is I think is the first time. Well, it's the first hand possession in the
Mm,
series. There's a lot of
yeah.
people getting their hands cut off, hands
Hmm.
being possessed throughout the whole series.
And also mirror stuff I noticed as well.
Yes.
Because in
Hmm.
this first movie, there's a Bruce Campbell. Ash looks into the mirror and he like dips his hand into the mirror and it's water. And then
Hmm.
that really freaks him out and he screams and like he blasts his shotgun at a window.
Yeah.
That's a really good bit. But then yeah, in the Evil Dead 2, you have like him like looking in the mirror, then like Ash like pops out of his reflection and like grabs him. Army of Darkness, you got the shattered mirror creating like six baby ashes that terrorize him, which is great sequence.
Yeah, I love that sequence.
So all the mirror stuff is good in all three movies. It's a nice little trope they got going.
Yeah.
And I really love the that pencil stab right in the heel.
Yes.
That's like
Brutal.
so visceral. Every time I watch it, I'm just squirming in my seat. The way it digs
Same.
in, it's just digging in so deep.
Yeah, and she's just like, yeah, moving it back and forth. Brutal.
Yeah, just the idea of getting stabbed with a pencil so deep like that. I don't
Ah,
know. It's like
making
way
me
worse.
cringe right now.
It's way worse than getting like stabbed with a knife. It's like we've seen that. That's like those are
Yeah.
made for stabbing, but a pencil.
Yeah.
And then she's like running around with like the bloody pencil, and I don't. That shit's
Yeah.
really good, and it looks good when it stabs into the heel. It's like this is a good little practical effect here.
Yes. Right before that is when they're guessing the cards, right? And then she like first like presents herself as like an evil demon.
Hmm.
The vocal effects on this throughout the whole series are probably my favorite element of the Evil Dead, of just the way they talk. Everything is like, but
Yeah, like
it's
their
just,
voices are like doubled or tripled up in weird
yeah,
ways.
yeah. But it's like, why have you awakened us from our ancient slumber? And Raimi puts it perfectly that they kind of like twerk like marionettes, like they like
Yeah,
the way their arms and their hands and their neck like move side to side. It's
yeah,
just it's so creepy.
yeah, and they're puking up blood and like milk and all sorts
Yeah.
of gross liquids are everywhere.
And their eyes are white. And I love that where, when she's in the cellar and the one character's like, what happened to her eyes? What happened to her eyes? It's like that's what you're most worried about.
They do look pretty fucked up, but
Yeah. But she also was just floating in midair.
yeah, Yeah, that was pretty wild too. No one's talking about that.
uh,
Yeah, another early scene I like is just them like when they're unpacking the car and they're just like throwing their like stuff at each other, like, hey, and just like it's just
that's
like
silly.
it's like a 5 second scene, but I think it does a good job of establishing like that they're buddies and that they feel like real people and like a little bit of sense of humor. And I don't know, that's a quick little thing I really liked. I just love the whole energy of the movie. It's right what I want out of a horror movie.
Hmm.
And the fact that it's like 80s and it's shot on film and
Hmm.
I don't know, it just makes it feel a little bit more gnarly. Nice old horror movie. It's great.
Yeah, I love how the demons in this movie are very mocking, very like Exorcist like, where they're just like making fun of all of their victims or laughing at them the whole time.
Hmm.
They're very sinister in that way, where like there's that scene where Linda's just like sitting kind of crisscross applesauce, just like smiling and being like, it's like,
Yeah.
kill her if you can, lover boy.
Yeah.
Like, you bastards.
Yeah, the Evil Dead remake from 2013, I think does a really good job of that too. And they like swear like sailors. They're always like
Hmm.
just like saying the F word and it's like your sister's being raped in hell. Like
Yeah.
they're just like saying most fucked up shit and they're like, what the fuck? I don't know. They're just
Yeah.
swearing a lot, which I kind of like.
Yeah.
Uh,
What are your feelings on the newer ones? First one came out like 10 years ago, right? It was the first reboot in a
2013.
while. Yeah.
Yeah, I rewatched that one too for this podcast, and I love that movie. I think
Hmm.
it has like really no sense of humor, which is
Yeah.
um kind of funny because that was like such a hallmark of the sequels.
Hmm.
But I kind of appreciate that it's like this the director wasn't gonna find an actor that is as good as Bruce Campbell. Like
Yeah, no.
don't even attempt to like recreate Ash
Yeah.
like because like it's not gonna work. So I like that they don't even try and they just really focus on making it more grounded.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that the main character is like this woman who's like trying to get sober and she's struggling with drug addiction. And I feel like that parallels well with the idea of being possessed or I don't know, just like going through withdrawals. I've never had to deal with somebody in my life that had to deal with that, but you hear
Hmm.
stories of it almost feels like they're being possessed when like they're like
Yeah.
hankering for their drugs and they're going through withdrawal and stuff. So I feel like I thought that was a good story beat and just the gore in that movie is unparalleled. I feel like I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
really gnarly.
Yeah. It's like fully raining blood at some point, right? Like,
Yeah, that's like the climax of the movie. It's like it's just
yeah.
raining blood and it has
Hmm.
an incredible chainsaw kill and the music like ah! And it's like I love that shit.
And it's directed by Fede Alvarez, who just did the Romulus movie, right?
Yeah.
Alien Romulus. He's really into the reboots. This Fede.
Yeah, yeah, I guess they're pitting him as the reboot guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't like Romulus as much as Evil Dead, his Evil Dead remake.
Hmm.
Mainly because the whole Bilbo Baggins deep fake thing was really put a damper on it.
Yeah. Ian Holm. Yeah, it's really rough. And
But
then Evil Dead Rise came out last year in 2023, and Drew and I saw that. I didn't love it. My review here is Hereditary, but less artsy and more puke.
mm, yeah,
It's
yeah,
a lot of puking in that movie, I remember.
yeah, it's my least favorite Evil Dead movie, but I still like it. Like I don't think
Hmm.
there's not a bad movie in the franchise, in my opinion. I think I still enjoyed Evil Dead Rise, even though it's not as good as the other ones.
My favorite part of that movie is the title sequence when
Oh
she
yeah,
floats
the
up and
openings.
it's like,
Yeah,
"Whoa." Yeah, like
yeah,
the soundtrack kicks in. It's really sick.
yeah. Might be the same soundtrack cue that happens when like she chainsaws the guy in the face at the when it's raining blood in the 2013
Mm.
one. Or I don't know, it sounds very similar of like a kind of a
Hmm.
demonic chorus.
I also watched the first episode of Ash versus the Evil Dead.
Oh yeah, I watched the first season of that with your brother Drew.
Oh, really? What do you think of it?
Yeah.
I mean, I watched that first episode. It's pretty okay.
Yeah, I mean, Bruce Campbell's back as Ash, and more of a middle-aged Ash, and
Hmm.
I think he's still got the humor and the
Oh yeah.
bravado for the character. So just for him alone, I think it's worth watching. But I never watched the rest of the series.
Yeah. It can't be understated how important Bruce Campbell is to this franchise.
Yeah,
He's got a rare mix of like hunkiness and also slapstick
yeah.
and can really play up like the kills really well.
He's got
And
a
he's
great chin.
great chin, best chin in the game, I might
Yeah,
say.
yeah,
His jawline is unparalleled.
yeah. And he's like, he's been friends with Raimi since high school, or maybe even before that. They like grew up together, like
Hmm.
making Super 8 movies together. So
Yeah.
that's I love that. Just like this deep friendship from their
Yeah.
childhood and like keeping that alive as they're making movies as adults is super cool. And Bruce Campbell's like a producer of like all the Evil Dead movies, so he's very involved in the whole thing.
Yeah.
He's cool as hell. But yeah, Bruce has got he's rocking the bangs in this first movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he kind of becomes like the final girl, you know?
Hmm.
It's like the horror trope of the final girl, but it's the final boy. And
Yeah.
it's just you just don't see many horror movies like that, and he manages to pull it off.
So how do you feel about the recap element of Evil Dead 2? Because that always just confused me. Why, Evil Dead 2 basically starts with a short rendition of the first Evil Dead.
Hmm. Yeah, I actually watched a clip of Bruce Campbell talking about it, and he said like,
There's an odd thing about Evil Dead 2. There's a weird little trivia in that people think that Ash, the character Ash, was stupid enough to go back to the cabin with a new group of friends because the way it was retold, we didn't own the rights to our own movie that was done by New Line Cinema. The second movie was done by Dino De Laurentiis. Well, we didn't have the rights. We couldn't get the rights to our own movie, which is the most ridiculous thing ever. So we just shot a recap with different actors as though that was the recap, but people thought, what's with all, he's coming back to the same cabin with these new people? What? So there's a big debate of is Evil Dead 2 a remake or a sequel? It's a requel. It's whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, but if you're going into Evil Dead 2, it's like, why didn't they just start it off with Ash being possessed? It's like they could have just
yeah,
took it right from the cabin,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. I guess they just wanted to be like an entry point. Like if you hadn't
Yeah.
seen the first one, you could just watch it.
Yeah.
Um, and I kind of like that they do the recap. I think it's kind of funny.
Hmm.
Army of Darkness does the recap again, but they reshoot
Yeah.
it again. Like
Yeah.
they're not reusing. I mean, there's some shots that are reused from Evil Dead 2, but it's like mostly like they cast a new girlfriend for Ash again for Army of
Hmm.
Darkness. Like I think it's like I thought it was super funny. Like they're just like kind of laughing at themselves that they like had to like shoot this same situation in three different movies.
Yeah. And I completely forgot that Evil Dead 2 ends with the setup of Army of Darkness. Again, not needing the recap because it ends perfectly at the beginning. It's like you could just kick it off. But I mean, I do like that they contain each movie to include the previous movies so that you can just watch those on standalone.
Hellraiser 2 has a good recap of Hellraiser 1, so you don't even need to watch Hellraiser 1 if you don't want to. Like it's still
Exactly.
you could still explains it away with so I kind of like that they do that. It is kind of goofy, but
Hmm.
I think it's fun.
Yeah, and Army of Darkness too just has some real Beetlejuice elements to it, it feels like, especially when
Mm.
he is like opening up the books. Like there was just the three books, and
Oh yeah.
one like sucks his face, and then he's got like the long face makeup.
Oh yeah, it's like when their skin gets pulled back.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It was reminding me. The whole movie feels very Tim Burton-esque to me.
yeah. I really love that scene when he's like trying to pick between the second and third book, and he like keeps going back and forth between.
Hmm.
Like it's just the way Bruce Campbell plays that scene without any words is really
Yes.
funny. It's cracking me up yesterday.
Yeah, some amazing physical comedy. And when he can't remember the words, he's like, Klaatu, Rectus.
He just kind of mumbles it under his breath.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because he
And
like, says he knows it's an N word. I'm like, oh, is this going to be like a racist joke? But
yeah,
he doesn't go that route, which is good.
necktie.
Yeah, there's a ton to talk. We definitely could do a whole episode just on Evil Dead franchise. This is kind of fits in with Megalapa month in that this is a mega episode.
That's what I think. I was gonna say that same thing.
It's like it may not be about Rome, but it is mega.
And writer directors, pure vision.
It is pure vision. But yeah, I just really love all the stop motion animation that's used all three of the movies, but it's really cool that they did it in the first movie.
Hmm.
Like the way that the bodies decompose at the end of
Yes.
this first movie. Like I
Hmm.
heard that it took like them 9 weeks just to like do that stop motion animation just for that section.
Hmm.
And I think it looks really good.
Yeah. Where the Necronomicon book too, like the mouth is like opening and
Hmm.
quivering.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that shit's super cool. I love stop motion anywhere it's used, and this all three of the Evil Dead movies use it a lot, and it's a lot of fun. Looks
Hmm.
cool as hell. And yeah, I love all the oozing and the stickiness. There was a good line from Sam Raimi in that interview I watched where he was talking about how there's just so much blood like all over the set and that they
Hmm.
just like use like corn syrup and coffee and
Hmm.
stuff to like
Hmm.
make the blood. But
Hmm.
he was talking about like inevitably get like all this stuff all over your hands and if he like wanted to like do something with the camera, like he would like wash his hands in hot coffee so to get the stickiness off his hands.
How about
So
some hot chocolate?
so he's like burning his hands just so he can use the camera again with
Wow.
hot coffee. And it's just like
Amazing.
just gives you a sense of the kind of insanity it was filming this movie. And I guess it
Yeah.
was they were shot it in Tennessee and it was like freezing cold
Mm.
and it sounds kind of miserable, but it sounds kind of fun too.
It's the sacrifice of filmmaking.
Yeah, and it seemed like Sam Raimi really takes some sick pleasure out of torturing Bruce Campbell.
Oh yeah, like where like he would just like hit him with the sticks. Like there's this
Yeah.
in Evil Dead 2 where he's spinning around through the forest and he's getting whacked with like branches and stuff. It was just Sam Raimi just like beating the shit out of Bruce.
Yeah, but they make it sound like he would like just like poke him in like he like injured his leg at one point shooting a
Hmm.
scene, and then Raimi would just poke his like injured leg with a stick, like not even while they were filming. He would just do it like off camera just because he thought it was funny to torture this guy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I love that Raimi's got a little bloodlust.
He's a sick puppy.
Oh, another fun thing was this movie. Its opening premiere was on my birthday, October 15th.
Oh, which is just a couple days away. Happy early birthday to you, Zach.
Yeah, as of this recording, it'll be past when this episode comes out. But and their premiere was at the Redford Theater in Detroit, which I went to for the first time last year to see The Thing on 35 millimeter. So
Nice. So I
it's
was gonna
it's a
ask if
really
it's
cool
still
old
around.
theater. Yeah, it's they're still playing a lot of old movies, so it's
Nice.
kind of cool that he had the premiere in Detroit on my
Nice.
birthday.
That's amazing.
Another connection why I love this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I just still can't believe that you just saw it a few years ago. It feels like part of your DNA.
Yeah, it was only my third time watching it yesterday.
Wow.
So, but it's a movie I plan on returning to because I get a lot of joy out of rewatching it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's my favorite directorial debut. Like, I don't know if
Mm.
there's any other, I can't really think of any other movies that come close, really, in terms of like a director's first movie. I think it's my favorite.
I'm trying to think of another one that might be better, but yeah, I mean, it's a really strong first showing.
Hellraiser is a strong contender as well because that's
Mhm.
Clive Barker's directorial debut.
Yeah. Trying to think what
Uh,
was the Coen brothers, Blood Simple?
yeah, Blood Simple. Yeah, they're inspired, or Blood Simple is a little bit inspired by how the process Sam Raimi went to like make the
Mm,
Evil Dead, like he like they kind of like were inspired by how he got financing and how they made like
mm,
a short film to like represent like it kind of laid out a blueprint for how they can make Blood Simple.
mm.
So who knows if we'd even have the Coens without Raimi?
Wow. The one thing that I noticed or clocked when I was watching it this time was how much of the movie towards the end especially is just kind of Ash being super paranoid and just kind of like
Hmm.
wandering. There's like if seemingly everybody's dead and he's
Yeah.
just kind of like his eyes are darting around the room and like the music is like there's just howling wind in the background and it's very silent and it's just him kind of stalking around and waiting for
Hmm.
something to happen. I think they build the terror in those moments too because you just like don't know when the next crazy thing is going to happen.
Hmm. Yeah, and I forgot that you kind of get the bonus scare like after it
Mm.
feels like everything's kind of settled down and then like the hands or the arms
Hmm.
start emerging out of the bodies and
Yeah.
that shit's really awesome. I love that.
And like the cornmeal like puke
Oh yeah.
stuff coming out of
Yeah,
their
like
sleeves.
yeah, it's like it's they went the extra mile to give the little extra juice at the end of the movie there, which I always appreciate that.
When he like pulls the stick out of the guy's like side and just like gushes blood or
Hmm.
oh, and when he pushes his eyes in with the
Oh yeah, yeah.
thumbs,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
goop comes out of his eyes. It's good
That
shit.
was reminding me of Game of Thrones when that happens to Pedro Pascal.
Right.
He gets thumb eye gouged in the very similar way. I was like, I wonder if
Yep.
they're thinking about Evil Dead when they did that. I love when like Ash's friend Scotty is like dead and like he's like giving him water. Like he's like
Oh
making
yeah.
him drink water. It's just like pouring out the sides of his mouth. He's like not even paying attention that his friend's dead.
Yeah.
That was a really funny bit.
Or in Evil Dead 2, I love when they stomp on the woman's head and her eyeball flies out and they have that like great shot where it follows the eyeball like right into the girl's mouth when she's screaming.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, and once again, I love the evil, the idea of like an evil spirit or just like pure evil, just like being a character in the movie flying around. I really love, and I love the sound design whenever you're in the POV of the evil entity running through the forest. You know,
Hmm.
it sounds really cool and demonic. Yeah, I guess they created their own like little steady cam kind of thing or shaky
Hmm.
cam rig by just like mounting the camera onto like a big board and they had
Hmm.
like two guys like holding it and they're just like running through the woods together
Yeah.
and just imagining them filming that is
Yeah.
really cool. I love that.
Yeah. I love how Sam Raimi's like, we found out that the longer the board was, the less it would shake. And so they like just got a really long board and had two guys, which is funny to imagine these two guys running through the forest like
Hmm.
with a big long board because they must have been like getting stuck at points and be like, no, you go to the left, you go to the right.
Yeah, like tripping over shit. Like I imagine
Yeah.
there's a lot of mistakes, but it looks great. And
Hmm.
I guess the very end of the movie, the last shot of the movie when the evil spirit like goes right into Ash's mouth, they filmed that by mounting it to a bicycle and like
Mm,
they're like riding a bicycle like actually through the cabin. So that's pretty cool. So
nice.
they're trying different techniques to achieve that effect and it looks great.
Yeah. Early early steady cam work.
Maybe we should move on
Yeah.
to
Is there anything else you
Hellraiser.
want to say about Evil Dead before any like final thoughts about it other than what you've already said?
Yeah, I just love the story behind this movie and for me it just has everything I want from a horror movie in terms of like good characters, good story, good kills, super gory, the charming low budgetness. It really appeals to me.
And kicked off an incredible franchise.
Yeah, and it's great to watch the other movies and be like, if you want something sillier, you can always watch Army of Darkness or Evil Dead 2.
Hmm.
And if you want something that's way more serious and extremely bloody and gory and metal, you can watch the 2013 remake.
And it can't be understated how much of an inspiration this movie was to many horror directors that are around now. I know A lot of directors pull from Evil Dead as like their inspiration for starting to make movies.
It's a huge movie, my favorite horror movie, and that's why we're talking about it today. And I love The Evil Dead. I love Sam Raimi. I love Bruce Campbell. I love The Evil Dead.
I love it too, but not as much as I love Hellraiser.